Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Healthy Indoors Show. I'm your host, Bob Krell. Um, we're happy to have two very industry-leading guests here to discuss Building Performance Institute's new healthy housing principles. They have a certification and reference guide that's just recently released. And with us today will be joining us Larry Zarker, the CEO of the Building Performance Institute, and Kevin Kennedy, who was the principal author and editor for this new document. So with that, let's bring these guys in. All right. Welcome. How are you?
Hello, welcome.
Hello, how you doing?
Kevin's no stranger to the show. He's been here before.
I'm not. Happy to be here again.
And in the co-pilot seat, we have, as always, Hayward Score's healthy building scientist, the ever-present Joe Medosh. So I guess Larry and Kevin are going to go through a brief PowerPoint presentation to give us just some background on this new document and program that the Building Performance Institute is releasing. So take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for having us on today. I want to give you a quick overview. Kevin and I want to give you a quick overview of the Healthy Housing Principles Certificate of Knowledge and the new reference guide that has just been released. Starting with the Healthy Home Evaluator that we introduced into the market 6 years ago, you have certificates of knowledge. We have core certifications that are prerequisites to the Healthy Home Evaluator. So you have to have one of those core certifications to get to the exam for the Healthy Home Evaluator professional. What we're introducing now is this Healthy Housing Principles Certificate of Knowledge with the accompanying reference guide. We don't have training in the market yet, but training is coming from a variety of sources to help people prepare to take the certificate exam. So 7 years ago, we introduced building science principles into the market. So lots of people in call centers, technicians, realtors, inspectors got the building science principles. This is the companion now on healthy housing principles and how it works. And it's built on the Keep It principles, reordered a bit, renamed a little bit, but it's something that HUD and many others in the industry have been using for years. And so we wanted to build out a reference guide that people can turn to and use. The certificate looks like this. It's open book. It's something that you can prepare for and take the exam at the convenience of your own computer and then download the certificate. And those who have the Healthy Home Evaluator or other BPI certifications can earn 8 CEUs for completing the Certificate of Knowledge exam. This is one of the widest audiences we've ever prepared for, not just people in the weatherization community or contractors doing work in the field like in air sealing or HVAC, but community health workers. They go into homes, in-home nurses, asthma educators, utility program representatives, even parents and teachers associations. Think about, kids who are missing school because of asthma episodes. That has an impact on their ability to be there and their parents missing work. So there's huge opportunities to learn about this and start stepping into healthy housing as a discipline. Again, we created these icons to showcase the different principles of healthy housing, and they follow through the book. So I'm going to turn this over to Kevin to talk through quickly what the book looks like.
Well, just to give you a sense, the intent was to update the knowledge. There is a previous guides that are out there. The concept of healthy homes have been around for about 20 years, and really active training has been available for about 13. But now with this new guide, it's updated information. There's a chapter on each of the Keep It principles that includes important figures and graphics to try to illustrate the concepts. It provides evidence-based explanations of the concepts for each of these Keep It principles, covering some of the basic building science concepts. It includes learning objectives and terms that you should know. It gives you a background first in health information, and then it gives you information about practical actions and recommendations that you can make. So it's immediate information that you can start to use and apply when you start working with clients. And it's information regardless of the background you come from. It's information that you can use even in your own home. It's very much a broad reference guide that tries to give you all the practical information supported by the evidence and education about complex information, ideally in a plain, simple language that makes it easy for you to understand. As you go through the guide, there's also a house as a system concept that connects each of the chapters. So we refer back to this idea of health as a system and how these things are all connected within the home and how each of the healthy home principles relate to each other. There is a good introduction and summary at the beginning that talks about some of the research, the history of healthy housing, and then a little bit about key resources. There's a wonderful resource section at the end that BPI and Larry have developed that connects to all of these chapters to give you additional information. All of the references are going to be made available at the BPI website. All of that will be available for you to use. Really, we want you to use this reference guide as something you'll have on the shelf, can pull down at any time to try to get the latest evidence-based information. And that's what's key, evidence-based information about these practical ideas and Keep It principles that you're trying to communicate with people, home owners and residents, to apply these things in their home, to make good recommendations regardless of the reason you're at the home. This matters now more than ever because there are reports like this. This is the second one from Harvard about consumer trends and interest in the idea of healthy homes. This one is specifically to healthy homes, remodeling, contractor preparedness, and what consumers are interested in. And it's very clear that consumers are particularly interested in having a healthy home, investing in a healthy home. What are the things they need to do to make their home healthier? And in particular, as we've shown here in our highlight, it's people who are a younger audience, a new audience, new homeowners, but also people who are starting families, people who are going to have children or have young children. And there's a lot of science out there. There's a lot of evidence out there that we need to be very careful about what people are being exposed to. So this audience is very interested in investing in a smart way in making their home healthier. And many people are wanting to age in place. So many seniors also are interested in investing and staying at home rather than living somewhere else. They want to stay in the home they've invested in over many decades, and they want to make it healthy for them as they get older. What's interesting too from this survey is that people are specifically interested in, a large number of people are interested in indoor air quality, pests, water quality, safety, chemicals used in their home. All of these are healthy housing topics. All of these are covered in the new Healthy Housing Reference Guide. So the guide is an ideal starting point. It's an ideal foundation as a person, well, if you want to add to your learning or if you want to expand your learning or start your learning, it's a good place to start. The other interesting thing from this review is that people are looking for this information because they want, as they look to invest in their homes, they're wanting to improve ventilation systems, upgrade their filters, improve light, remove moisture mold issues, remove any kind of contaminants or toxics. They want a clean, healthy home. And interestingly, from the survey, the vast majority of people are interested in this because a large number of people have chronic illnesses. Everyone listening today, everyone in America is going to unfortunately have a chronic illness sometime in their lifetime. They're not going to experience that in the hospital, in a clinic. They're going to experience and manage that chronic illness at home. So people are very concerned about having a good quality, healthy home to manage their health for long-term well-being. Now, because of SARS-CoV-19, SARS-CoV-2, more than ever, people are spending 100% of their time. The research said 70 to 90%. Now it's all of your time in your home. So people are even more interested, more willing to invest in making their home indoor air quality better. They're making their office in their home. So they want to actively think about how to set up an office to be a healthy workplace in their own home. So they want to be very careful and smart about their investment, because the economy also has been set back significantly. So many people are wanting to be very careful about how they invest in their home.
All right, so let's take a look at the Weatherization Assistance Program. This is from last year when the program was reauthorized, and there was an intention to try and raise the amount of money. It didn't get to that level, but we now know that the appropriation for 2020 it was completed, and I think some of the language that we see there is still very relevant. For the first time ever, the Secretary may amend the regulations to allow improvements in health and safety of occupants, not just if you're doing energy efficiency and that efficiency upgrade has a health concern, you can address it. This now allows a broader look at the home. And as a matter of fact, I learned today that there is a NOFA coming out pilot of looking at healthy homes and weatherization in several communities. So there is really an active look in this area at it. And in terms of the old issue with deferrals, I don't know the exact number or percentage when weatherization crews go into homes. One person in one of the states told me that up to 40% of the homes they visited were deemed deferrals. And I've always called this a national tragedy, that those people don't get any of the weatherization upgrade work done, and they have to live with the problem that they were having, like a leaking roof that might cause rot and mold inside the unit. So being able to make a home weatherization ready is, I think, a very good new step. And I'm happy to see that HUD and DOE were working together on that. When you look at the business opportunities, this is one of the things I say to contractors in their community. Think about who are the people in your community that you can talk to. The specialists in medical, the caregivers, people in the agencies, public health agencies, the parent and teacher associations who have a concern about keeping kids healthy. And one of our contractors goes to bridal shows, and he's the only one there who's in this field. The reason he goes there is he knows that young couples are going to get married and have a family, and they're going to think of him when they're trying to think about what their home, the health of their home, and caring for their children. Lastly, do not ever overlook the possibility of using media to your advantage. I use the example of a builder in Atlanta who wanted to start building green. He didn't know much about it, but he made a list of the things he did that were green, and he started talking about it. And pretty soon the Atlanta Constitution did a feature on him as the green builder of Atlanta. You can get into this step by step and get into a better understanding. Training, reading books like the reference guide, getting the credentials that help you get there are certainly essential to that process. So these are the resources. Our information is at bpi.org/HHP. We've created, as Kevin talked about earlier, a resource section that you can go into, and it's a living resource. If you find resources that should be here, we'll add them. If you find something that's out of date, we'll replace them. And lastly, if you want a PowerPoint PDF or view a video, just go to bpi.org/HHP_presentation, and you'll find both those resources there. The video is coming. It'll be there in the next day or two. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to you, Bob, for Q&A.
Hey guys, well that's it's an exciting program. I guess my first question to you, Larry, is so why did BPI embark on this new program?
So we've been in business 28 years as a national nonprofit. Comfort, health, safety, energy efficiency, durability have all been part of our mantra, our mission from the beginning. But in terms of health and safety, we tended to think of combustion safety and not the fuller picture. And so it's been in recent years that we said to ourselves, let's take the blinders off and see the fuller picture of what's going on in a home. And that's really why we're there now.
Yeah, who's the you mentioned in one of the slides the target audience, but I think it's worth restating. This is a much broader audience than many of the BPI programs that previous to this.
It sure is. I mean, for me, with a marketing background, this is a lot of fun. I get to meet new people and talk about, what they're interested in and how what we are bringing to the table, traditionally with a contractor base, actually can mean for their audiences. If they are setting specifications for the work or requirements for the people who go into homes, why not get this certificate of knowledge, read the reference guide, find available trainings so that there's a minimum bar of qualifications for the people doing the work.
Interesting, the progression of this. This has been in the works for a little while. It started a couple of years ago. I was on your original exploratory committee with it when we were doing some of the original stuff, and then interesting how it transgressed to Kevin Kennedy is brought on board to kind of steward this thing to the final stretch. And how did that all take place?
Well, it's a long, sad story. Not really. No. I have been fortunate enough to have a relationship with all of you for many years, with Larry for quite a while now. As BPI started exploring more specifically healthy homes, it was an opportunity for me because I've been involved in the national conferences, the energy conferences, but from the healthy home and indoor air quality side for 18 years. So I was routinely involved. But then when the opportunity came up that BPI was looking more specifically at this integration, that was an opportunity for us to start co-presenting several years ago about this opportunity, about this chasm, this gap between the communication of the healthcare side and the people who work in buildings. And I had worked on crossing that chasm in the healthy home world for many years. And then that naturally extended into the building performance and energy efficiency side, because I've worked with our local energy efficiency people in Kansas City, where I work out of, since 2002. Metropolitan Energy Center there has been an institution locally in Kansas City, and actually in the energy world early on. Some of the energy efficiency work started there in the 1970s. Many people know Bob Hausch from decades of being at Metropolitan Energy Center. But then with the development of the Healthy Home Evaluator credential, that's where Joe and I and others, many other professionals, and you too, Bob, were directly involved in the development of integration, a practical integration of healthy homes into the energy and building analyst process, but also to teach the idea of applying house as a system in a different way, through a different lens, through more of a health and safety lens, more of a focus on indoor environmental factors. And then, well, what does that mean? Well, that means there's all these other conditions like clean and the issues related to cleanliness, like contaminants and contaminant-free. What are the common chemicals that are commonly found in homes, and how do you address those? A different look at moisture management. Certainly that's critical to the energy efficiency, home performance, building performance world, but we're looking at it from a different perspective. It's more about reducing moisture, because it's so connected to the research as far as its impact on the environment in indoor of buildings, and ultimately leading to chronic dampness and health impacts. So lots of connections there that led to me being involved.
Well, and there's been studies for years on that as well, as far as
Exactly
with the moisture. WHO, not as much in the U.S. though. It seems like it's internationally they jumped on that sooner. But anyway, Joe.
So there is a major overlap that's been kind of ignored. With you talked about people go to homes and they get deferred, but even if you just look at the energy side, ventilation is not really an energy saving process, but they put it into their energy assessment. Combustion safety isn't saving any energy. These are safety, fundamental, healthy home concepts that have been on board the energy field for years, and it's okay to install something that actually uses more energy because it adds ventilation. So there's been an overlap, and I think right now we're at this time where there's energy and there's health, and we're going to be not long before it's an assessment, and you understand that these things are all already connected, and you don't just do one or the other. You're going to be doing both all the time. In fact, BPI's old logo had health, safety, and comfort, I believe it was, something like that. So health has been in there for a long time. It just really wasn't actually something we understood, or it wasn't in the scope. Is really one of the challenges that many folks were going to home and they're like, wow, you have a loose handrail and loose treads here. This is a major health issue, safety issue, but it wasn't something that was always in their scope. Some people say, yes, it is, and others not. So our goal now is to broaden the home to make sure that the occupant has complete coverage, not just from a good energy bill and comfort, which is one of the healthy HUD principles, and so these are the kind of things that we're really seeing the overlap that's happening right now. So I'm really happy that, and you mentioned something I think that is even better than just something that's on the shelf. Why don't you hold your book up there, Kevin, and flip it to any page. You're going to go into, you could take this into the house, flip to any page and be like, oh, you know what? I want to look something up. And here it is, that you can find something right there and refer to it, either show the client, right? Or, read it yourself real quick, or say, here's some information that I wanted to share with you, and know that it's there. I'm sure people are going to be making copies of these pages to send to clients.
Well, the other part, there's a nice action section at the end of each chapter, a summary of actions that you could put right into a report.
Right. And some people like to, dog ear their publications and put little tabs in, and other people are more comfortable in a digital environment. So we're going to have a flipping book PDF version for those who are strictly into having it digital. Personally, I'm in the school that, I want to be able to dog ear those pages and refer back to them so that I can, look back at from time to time, and I'm not as good with a full book in the digital environment, but it is available.
Anybody who knows Joe knows he says, be the source of the source. And if you, I'll hold it up there. The book has about 300 references, so it's very well referenced, and BPI was very supportive of having the web links in there for most of those references. If they're not there, they've already got it, and it's on their web page. So if you want to read in depth the WHO report on indoor air quality, mold, and building dampness, it's there.
And we only put one URL in the entire publication, and that was to send people to the resources page and say, this is a living document. If it's out of date, let's change it. If you have a new publication, let us know and we'll add it.
I do want to stress about what you have. I'm going to just show a couple screenshots of your online. And the reason that I'm explaining why it's amazing that it's online is that you can update things at any time. You're going to get somebody say, hey, you forgot us, and you're going to be able to add that. And you've got great resources here in terms of the checklist or educational materials, key references. And if any one of those changes, you don't have to wait for another printing of the book to actually kind of update the information. So this is great that it's constant. And even if you don't have the book, or even you have access to this material, that's also a great resource for the entire industry. If you're like, I'm not sure yet, well, this link will convince you that this is some amazing information.
Well, and you can see from looking at the book, it's pretty thick. But one of BPI's goals was plain language. Let's write this in a simple language, because, as Larry said, it's the largest audience of people, their target audience they're trying to reach, that they've ever dealt with. And I would argue that maybe anybody's dealt with, as far as trying to have a common understanding of things that apply not only to the places people work, but really the place they live. Any citizen really could almost buy this book, and it's like a healthy homeowner's manual.
And
it
there's
everything.
nothing like a worldwide pandemic to bring attention to health in homes. So, it's not something, as Kevin said in our press release, this was not something we planned to do. But it brings focus to the point that we really need to focus on our homes.
I do want to real quick. Sorry, Bob. I want to point out that this is a certificate, right? Just want to stress the difference between a certificate versus a certification, and that
or credential.
Okay. And you do not need to do anything prior. Just so I just want to stress that what is required to take this, do this. What are the first steps, and how do I complete this?
Yeah. So you don't have to buy the reference guide. I personally recommend it because there's so much information in there, but the point is that there is an exam. Once you purchase the exam code, we send it to your email address. It's for you specifically. You take the exam at your convenience when you're ready. And then when you pass the exam, you download the certificate and you put it in a frame and it's yours.
It's open book, right?
And it is open book, right?
And 8 credits. You get 8 credits for completing it.
8 CEUs, as we said. So one thing I wanted to point out from the conversation before, the link between energy efficiency and healthy homes. DOE's published a study, E for the Future has published a study. We've all intuitively known that they're connected, but they actually put in some evidence as to how there's a growing body of evidence that efficiency and the health of our homes and its impact on occupants is intertwined.
And that's been something, I think that's been something that the industry's been broaching, for a long period. I mean, as long as I've been in indoor environmental, since the early 90s, and actually late 80s, there's always been that paradigm that I think has finally been maybe broken, that you either work on the energy efficient side or you work on the indoor environmental side, but you can't have both. It's that they always had, you always saw the thing with the scales. It's like, well, do you want energy efficiency or do you want good environments? And it's like, yes, we want,
That's interesting, because I've been in the industry about the same time, length of time that you have. And Joe knows. The first time Joe and I had a deep conversation where he's teaching me more specifically about the energy audit process and the methods of using blower doors and pressure diagnostics, it was absolutely eye-opening, because I grew up in the indoor air quality consulting world. I spent a decade working in analytical chemistry and industrial hygiene chemical, working on all sorts of exposure investigations, et cetera, in homes and buildings. No one ever threw up a device that shows you how air infiltrates into a building rapidly from all of those hidden channels, all of those hidden interstitial spaces in the framing and everywhere else. I immediately realized, my God, A, how quickly that changes and how little pressure it takes to make that change. And B, the exposure pathways are so clear and completely hidden that why aren't consultants and hygienists using a blower door in every home they investigate, just as part of the investigation process? They can do pressure diagnostics. They can do differential diagnostics. They could understand the role the HVAC system plays in that pressure pathways and buildup. Nobody in that industry has paid attention to this at all.
It's a totally huge point. Now, I will say the caveat there is Terry Brennan was doing this a long time ago. Okay,
right.
and Terry's from this. I'm in Syracuse. Terry's in the Utica area.
Well, yes.
And so Terry harped on me a lot. We were very friendly competitors and industry colleagues for decades. And he got me interested. To be honest, Terry's the one that got me interested to start pursuing the BPI stuff early in the 2000s. And I was an IAQ consultant. I remember I was one of the first IAQ guys probably that went and got all your BPI certifications. Because I remember John Jones made comments of that, and so so did all our reps. Like,
Mhm.
wow, you're the IAQ company. It's like, well, yeah, because it kind of makes sense. We're making all these claims, but we're not looking at that whole building diagnostic, from that perspective. From the
Exactly
building
right.
envelope perspective, we really weren't doing
That's
that.
what we did too. So many years ago, we partnered with Metropolitan Energy Center on healthy home training. They had us come in and do healthy home training for their BPI training, as just they built it into the week of training. But then they allowed all of our hygienists to go through their BPI training. So they all went through the building analyst training and the auditor training. So they learned that approach to a home, house as a system, but also to the diagnostics. So, and all of them is very eye-opening as far as their approach to assessing homes.
But things are starting to move closer together on these two industries. They're not. There's the separation isn't there anymore. Like Joe, you'd agree with that, right? There seems to the lines have blurred.
The lines are blurred, and now there's more opportunity for weatherization, state weatherization agencies to go in and be like, you have asbestos. We're not allowed to touch asbestos, but here's what we can do to now identify that and actually remediate that, and then we'll be back. Versus just saying,
Right.
good luck. So now, as Larry mentioned, there are some funding to do that. There was funding in Washington State to do things for their kind of one of the first things on weatherization plus health. Yeah, and they were able to do things like replace carpet, buy a vacuum cleaner, do things that you would never think of as a normal weatherization crew would come in and do, and be like, well, there's several people here who have asthma, and let's figure out what we can do to reduce these kind of triggers, because that actually has the greatest impact in sometimes lowering their energy bill. So there are ways that we're now starting to see for the first time, and I think states are starting to realize that you guys are close to proving this to us as a method of actually reducing our costs. So we really think that this is something that is kind of tipping that way. And once one state says, you know what, this is one way that we're actually going to be able to reduce our healthcare costs, is because this is what these folks are doing to reduce energy, it's going to explode rapidly in terms of actually improving people's homes and their health.
Those are the progressive states.
If I could comment on that, I went to a presentation in Portland a year and a half ago, and Judy Olson and her team from the Tacoma Pierce County Department of Health spoke about a collaborative pilot that really was groundbreaking. One of the Washington State pilots where her community health workers teamed up with Weatherization plus Health, BPI Healthy Home Evaluators, and they found 58 homes with 78 occupants that had asthma or COPD, and they did a study that was evaluated by Washington State University, and they collaborated. Our people really don't do behavioral issues and use of medicine and how the medicine is administered, and are you seeing your doctor, and are you doing something about secondhand smoke and all those things. Our people don't do that. Community health workers do. They don't tend to get down in the crawl spaces and look for the interstitial pathways that Kevin was describing. So you put them together and they mapped out a plan, and they actually proved that they had a significant impact on quality of life. And Bob, that was in the March issue last year. And it to me was of Healthy Indoors magazine. And I will tell you, I see that as groundbreaking, that kind of collaboration that can occur across sectors that haven't communicated in the past, that really can do things that are greater than the sum of the parts. Right?
Are you seeing more of that though? Are you, because I mean, that was a groundbreaking thing, but it's starting to pick up nationally?
Groundbreaking in that the way they did it, but actually that kind of work's been going on for a while from a different perspective. My program works with housing organizations locally, the program at Children's Mercy Hospital, and there are those kind of programs. They were healthy home specific. The difference is we've jumped to weatherization and collaborating between the weatherization programs and not just the health systems and the community health workers, but there is in many states, a conscious interest of the managed care, the health insurance companies, in trying to find ways to work with the weatherization programs to implement a program similar to what Larry's describing, where you have caseworkers that might represent, or care coordinators who represent the managed care company, who collaborate with the weatherization program to get an assessment done and identify health and safety things that could be done as part of weatherization activity.
So one of the things that I think we hear about all the time, and it was in our June issue of Healthy Indoors, we talked about the racial injustice of indoor environmental conditions. And is it not? Would you not agree that the underserved communities tend to be have the housing stocks that maybe have some of the most heinous problems happening, as far as indoor environmental issues? And to that end, then the weatherization programs tend to be working in those areas. So this is a great opportunity, is it not, to start to make real substantial impact?
Oh, no question about it. And the research is very clear that it is not. There are two pieces there. One is people having, they are underserved because of a lack of financial resources. That would be people who are low and moderate income, who just have never had the resources to be able to invest. And in many communities, Kansas City is a common one, where you've got a lot of housing that was passed through the family, that the family has owned or inherited along the way, but they never had the resources to be able to invest in the maintaining of the home. So it has deteriorated to some degree. And unfortunately, the honest conversation that our country needs to have is that we have a history of intentional injustice, where we put people of color into particular parts called redlining. You can look it up on the internet, where we intentionally isolated them in communities, and we intentionally divested from that part of the community. We wouldn't allow any kind of business investment, or we discouraged it, or the people who were in charge of the banks wouldn't even allow some financing in those areas. And then the communities would put their highways through there, drop their pollution sources in there, their industries in there. So it's this whole history of an intentional injustice that leads then to long-term chronic health problems, and then no dollars, no financial resources to do anything to mitigate the impact of that. So yes, it will have an absolute impact and improvement in those communities.
And other parts of the social determinants of health include the substandard school systems, the distance people have to go to work, and you have to use public transportation, especially within COVID-19. Being on public transportation puts you at greater risk.
More than half of your health impact is actually your environment. It's not genetic, like what many people thought, that it actually is your environment impacts you more than anything else that's on that.
And yet our healthcare system is not set up and designed in any way to address that environment. It's set up to pay for clinical things that you would like to have happen. It's reactionary medicine, not proactive medicine.
It's not preventative.
The idea, you can look this up. It's called upstream medicine. It's a whole initiative, and there's even a book called Upstream Medicine by Dr. Machanda. I can't remember his first name, but he's a doctor who, when he actually in interacting with his patients and gathered information about them and environmental history, which more and more physicians are doing, if you gather that environmental history, he would go to their homes and see the conditions they live in. He looked upstream. What are the root causes? What are the root sources of the health problems that are being presented in the clinic? Why should I keep feeding you medicine so that you can go back and live in those horrible, moldy, damp conditions and cope with it? Whereas if I invested in making that home better, you don't need the medicines anymore. And there's tons of research from all over the place the last 20 years that show this clear relationship. If we invest in improving the home, the people who live there get better.
Well, we're treating symptoms rather than going after the cause, the root cause,
Right.
and it's like, yeah, I mean, we tend to do our healthcare system. Well, let's face it, it's a for-profit healthcare system, which is, really designed to make profit in doing treatments, not going and fixing the root cause of somebody's health issues.
And I was at a same conference in Portland where there were some contractors talking about a pilot they did with a clinic. And what they found was that the doctors saw their patients who had taken a shower and wore different clothes than they normally wore when they came into the clinic. So the doctors had a prevailing view of who that patient was. And the contractors went into more of the home environment and chronicled what the conditions were like in the home, and brought that back to the doctors, and they couldn't believe that there was such a disparity.
Absolutely. And that's what we see through our program.
So you mentioned fixing the home. So I want to kind of go to the next bridge, which is that BPI has the Healthy Home Evaluator, which is a credential, and you need one of the other credentials to support that before you can, take that exam and become that. And Bob, I, and Kevin were all on your founding, committee and groups, and we
Right.
all thought this was going to change a lot. And we realized that there was no entity that said you need to have this credential, otherwise it would have exploded. So it was just something that was a great knowledge base, but there wasn't a requirement. Connecticut, I think, is one of the few. Some weatherization groups went ahead and got their people certified, but in
Right.
general, it didn't explode like we thought. But I think that you've now found the groundwork to say, here's something that everybody can engage in, everybody can learn from. And when you do need to send somebody in the home, BPI is ready to give you somebody who is a healthy home evaluator who understands building science and the health compartment and say, here's the recommendation. So I think that the horse definitely was, or the cart was actually out there before the horse. But now you've actually got
That's
some
one
great.
way to put it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, there's an important distinction there. The certificate of knowledge, this healthy housing principles reference guide, is that foundational knowledge. And
Right.
everybody in your program, in my opinion, should have that knowledge, should get that certificate, and should have that knowledge. That way, everybody in your organization has a common language as they talk about, engage, and interact. Even the person at the front office can be advocating to clients who call. But then when you're going to send somebody, the thing that the certificate of knowledge and that the reference guide doesn't have is the how to assess, the systematic process of assessing and characterizing health and safety risks in housing. And how do you prioritize those? And how do I make specific recommendations and communicate in effective ways to clients? That's the HHE. That's a healthy home evaluator. That's a person who has this foundational knowledge along with their building science knowledge and maybe another BPI credential that is applied diagnostics. Now you're giving them the additional skill set to systematically go through and assess and characterize, and if needed, diagnose through testing, measurement, and new testing and measurement techniques to get to that skill level. So you don't need to have everybody on the staff with that credential, but you do need to have key people on staff that have that credential who
Right.
can go and do those investigations.
I'd like for you guys to talk briefly about the power of these two simple certificates of knowledge, that if you have the building science principle and you add the healthy home, what a great combination that is. Or if you think you just now learned about the healthy housing principles, that realize that there's actually another amazing fundamental that's also the energy side. So why don't you talk about how these things overlap in terms of somebody who's in either side of this industry now has the ability, without doing a whole week-long training, to have gathered a great foundation about building science and healthy home principles.
I'll start. We see moving forward that training may actually couple those two together. Building science principles, healthy housing principles may go together. What we found when we introduced the building science principles is that the ones who were actually out in the field doing audits and upgrades of homes probably had their building analyst envelope certifications. They knew the building science. They weren't really the primary candidates to get the building science principles, but people from other parts of the industry, here locally, Rob Minnick, his staff at his HVAC company, he wanted everyone in-house to pass the building science principles because he was concerned that someone might pick up the phone and talk to a customer and say something inappropriate. So he wanted them to have the foundation of what building science means. And that's true of inspectors, of realtors, of students that are trying to decide on a career path. Maybe they're going to go into home improvement. Maybe they're going to go into real estate, but having that knowledge base is important. So adding healthy housing principles is on one level the same thing. Students can learn about career paths, but it also is good for people who are in the field, like in-home nurses who come into a house every day and they see their patient, and they don't actually look around them to see how that home and the conditions in the home may be impacting them. So having this is a fundamental change in a viewpoint.
Well, imagine a construction company or a large contractor. They have people on staff who are their construction workers. Imagine if they're building houses. They know how to swing a hammer. They know where the studs go, the joists, how that all assembles into a house, and they move to the next house. But imagine if you gave them the knowledge and skills of building science and the knowledge and skills of healthy housing, the same worker, and had them build houses. They would be far more aware of the work they're doing and its potential impact on the people who are going to be the future occupants of this house. Many years ago, I had the opportunity through our program to offer healthy home training to contractors with some of our housing organization partners in Kansas City. 2-hour workshop on healthy homes to the contractors, pointing out to them common health and safety issues that occur in construction and really emphasizing to them the importance of their job, the importance of the impact of the house they build, the HVAC system they put in to the people who occupy it. And I'm there from a hospital talking about the impact on children and the children who are going to occupy the houses you work on, you renovate. That it was so eye-opening to them. They just never had thought about the work they did having such a personal impact on the people that buy these homes from them. And if you could have the workforce that work for a contractor construction company take those two foundational sets of information and put them together, that's really the baseline, I think, for anybody who works, builds, or evaluates homes.
But isn't that a hard sell? I mean, in the construction industry, because I would argue that the contractors you got there were upper end or forward thinking contractors and not necessarily representative of contractors at large across the country.
Well, this is a housing organization that works on low income housing using HUD community development block grant funds.
I don't disagree with your point, though.
Yeah.
I think we'd be well served if everybody that's involved in putting buildings together had some understanding of the ramifications.
What's it going to cost a contractor? How much do the 2 trainings cost per employee? $500? $500 for, you could change that employee's life, their career path. They may have never even thought about getting into health and safety and housing or getting deeper into energy analysis.
And it may impact what they do in their work, but it's definitely going to impact how they live in their home. As you get that knowledge, our marketing person, Quinn, is engaged and on vacation last week. She took the book with her and read it on vacation. And her fiance said to her, "Why are you spending so much time reading this thing?" And she said, "Oh, you'll be reading it too."
So you mentioned framers, which maybe some people are trying to have a challenge to digest that, but I don't see any HVAC contracting company that doesn't understand where this completely fits everybody, like Rob Minnick does, whoever answers the call, whoever goes in the home. So one thing I did want to stress is that there is an amazing amount of energy related training that's free out there. You can go to YouTube and learn everything you probably could ever want to know about doing diagnostics, blower door, energy loads, calculations, all that stuff. There is a free learning base just because so many people want to share their knowledge. You could not figure out how to do a healthy home assessment. What are healthy home conditions, principles? We just have not been able to have enough people in the industry that want to share their knowledge like they do others. So this is something that is groundbreaking, that this is not something like, oh yeah, that's old news. People are like, no, I had no idea about half these things that are in that book. So I think we are going to see more people wanting to like read the book and then regurgitate it back out for other people to kind of understand. So I think there is a great learning curve that's going to happen for everybody and people will be able to benefit from that. But right now, this is the only thing out there that you could actually figure out what's going on with a healthy home concept and great resources behind it.
So this new program just hit the street about a week ago, right? We're about a week into it, maybe a little longer, 2 weeks?
No, this week, really.
This week. Okay. So it's, I mean, this
today,
is fresh.
Today.
Well, you know, so
we have books back from the printer. I mean,
this one literally showed up, you know, like really quickly yesterday, which was great. So how is it, you know, initially, how's it being received? I know this is like early to ask that question, but, you know, are you seeing a buzz in the industry and these different sectors that you're trying to attract with it?
Well, I'll start and give it to Kevin, but our marketing plan for this was, you know, to go out to the federal agencies that have programs that relate to it, and we reached out to them. The reaction has been way stronger than I thought it would be, to the point where I'm getting calls and emails from people in federal agencies who have been referred to me from someone else in the agency, saying you gotta get a copy of this, get on the list to get a copy of this. So that's to me is a very strong signal. We have associations, big associations that deal with health issues, like the Allergy and Asthma Foundation of America. Kevin and I talked with them last year and said, when we're ready, let's figure out a game plan. So in general, I'm finding that the reaction is very positive. This is needed. And that there was a certification out in the field that NEHA had, the Healthy Home Specialist. When they discontinued that, we bought their intellectual property. And that's really, this is the culmination of completely repurposing that and bringing out something that we think is going to have a broad appeal across many sectors related to health and homes.
And one of the things that was missing was NEHA did not produce any reference guides or resources. HUD, fortunately, the Office of Lead and Healthy Homes, for years had supported a National Healthy Home Training Center that was operated by the National Center for Healthy Housing, and was a wonderful network, 42 training centers across the country. We were one of those for 14, 15 years, and taught hundreds of people, thousands of people actually, on the healthy home principles and actually on healthy homes assessments. But that funding slowed. The publication, the updates of the publications that they had stopped, and then the training center, the whole network had paused. I have heard that it's being restarted, but has been paused for a few years now. So there was missing information. NEHA vacated the credential. They're still supporting those who have the credential, but they're not doing anything beyond that. So there was this chasm where there was missing information, and the information that is available was dated. The last publication I saw on what they call the Essentials Guide, I believe, was from 2014. So that was many years.
It's a while.
It's been a while, and there's been some new science. The other thing is that the history of that healthy homes training, which I did, had a lot of focus on history, had a lot of focus on codes, the importance of housing codes. No question, they're important. The difference here is a focus on new evidence, on practical information, lots of practical information that can be applied immediately, that you can, both for your own personal use and professionally. It's packed full of evidence-based information that you can use in all the work that you do. So we really wanted to provide the latest information. And then the other great thing that BPI has done is build, as Joe alluded to, a website that has everything up to date, where now going forward, you're not just investing in a guide or a certificate, you're investing in a resource center that is always updated, that you can always go to get the latest information, the latest evidence, the latest publications related to a particular scientific topic about housing. Well, you can imagine that's a rather broad set of things to stay on top of. How nice to be able to go to a website that has it categorized by keep it principles to look up the latest information.
One of the challenges with HHE was that there wasn't a reference guide. There wasn't anything to go to say, oh, I want to sit for this exam. What do I go study? And the only thing that we could give people was a mountain of libraries of things to hope they could find out what's in there without just giving them the direct answers to a question. So this is finally something that's been able to be defined as a set of knowledge. And I think if you are thinking about the HHE, this is a fundamental groundwork for that. It would broaden your perspective as to what the HHE is also trying to do. So if you do the certificate and you already are a BPI certification holder, now you're going to realize why the HHE is a great step. And right now, there's a career for people to do energy. You could do energy assessments. You could leave your weatherization crew and go start your own business, is something that people debate all the time. Now there's actually healthy homes as actually a profession. And of course, you're bringing the energy with you in your whole building science. So I think there is something that is broadening what people go do in a home. That's not just energy. You now are, you could be in fact, a lot of contractors figure out, how do I become a healthy home contractor? And that's now Peter Trost says he's getting calls regularly on how they can remarket their website to say they do healthy home assessments. So
well, look at Matt Hargrove's Total Home
Right.
Performance. That's a wonderful example of a business that's been very successful of integrating healthy homes and indoor air quality into their regular business practice.
Yeah, and another point here, and I know, Joe, you've brought this up in presentations before, is that there's a lot of shiny gadgets out there in the age of COVID-19 that, the UV lights and all sorts of things that attach onto HVAC equipment or don't, that you wave the wand over your phone and supposedly you're sterilizing it. There's a lot to be skeptical about. What we're trying to do is give people a base knowledge that they can work with, and it's use your senses, use your nose, use your eyes, use your your sight, your hearing, whatever works for you to try and understand what's going on there. Don't jump to the shiny new object as the cure.
Well, the one thing that I've gotten learned from Kevin is evidence-based application. So, as I say, source of the source, you now have a source. This is actually, you can quote the HHP, which also has its own reference inside of it. So you now are saying that it isn't me telling you something about these chemicals and their potential impact on you and your family. I now have this source, and I can actually, directly reference it and its own reference as to why I'm stating these, which reduces your liability in a way you can't fathom. You can claim energy bills. Most people don't get sued on that. They do get sued if they claim health conditions that are not backed on by other evidence-based conditions. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're stating and where that came from.
So you just opened up the next hour of our talk.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to go there, but I'm not. I had a couple of questions. The notes are here, and it's like, nah, I'm looking at the clock. It's like, can't go.
I'll quickly say that you're not there to talk about health impact specifically. You're there to talk about environmental impact. You're there to help people improve the home environment. Research says if they do these things, it improves the environment and therefore should improve the health of anybody living there. Right. That's the comfortable conversation. People are anxious about talking about health. You don't need to talk about health. Talk about improving the home. Your goal is to improve the home environment. That's what this whole book is focusing on.
Good point.
Yeah, but I great point. But I will say that some people get caught up into like, oh, you have asthma. These are asthma triggers, and so there's this connection. So it's a fine line. But as Kevin said, you're there to make the home healthier, not the occupant. That's something you cannot control.
Well, they can talk with their physician about, hey, I got recommendations from this healthy home evaluator or this new person with this healthy home certificate. The recommendations are to do this to make my home better, and then the physician or provider should be able to say, well, yes, I know your medical history. I know what conditions you have. They're right. I think your health will benefit from these environmental improvements, and there's evidence to support that. And heck, you could even take the guide in and say, hey, here's the evidence to back up what this guy's recommending.
Well, and see, that same caveat's true for the IAQ professional side too. You really can't get into talking about medical stuff. And I see that, I'm at conferences, you know that, Kevin, we all go, we travel in the same spheres, and Joe, and you get there and you hear people talking about stuff, and they're making medical claims, and they're not medical people. It's like, stop that. That's true for everybody in this.
Stay in your
lane.
Stay in your knowledge base.
Got to know your limitations.
And the same for the doctors.
Doctors talk about environmental stuff from afar, from their office, never saw the place, and start saying that you've got a mold problem in the place. How the hell do you know that from afar?
No question about it. I have been fortunate to be involved in the healthcare industry for 20 years and go to their conferences, and I'm there to talk about environment. And one of the things we talk about politely, respectfully, is, hey, we're the environmental experts to help you understand the environment. You're the health experts. I'm staying in my lane. You should stay in your lane and take advantage of us. We know the environment, but we certainly know you're the ones who have the expert on health.
Okay, it is that time of our hour that I need to get you guys to do a wrap up. That's my two roles. I have some slides I show, and I get everybody to wrap up and turn your phones off. So I want you guys to jump ahead 5 years and be like, okay, this is out. This is established. I even think that BPI and their other certifications will actually kind of merge as a little more health-based. But let's talk about how this you think will impact homes and occupants is where we hope that this would go to. So Larry, why don't you start us off?
I like to talk about the Holy Grail. And for me, that means that we have a managed care or insurance industry that appreciates that there is a role of the indoor environment in affecting health, that those who have the capability to address that could actually change the way that they do business and maybe actually reduce their premiums if done correctly. I'd like to see that the medical community understands that there's a contractor base out there that can do this. And through that connection, we have an ability to actually solve a lot of environmental health problems that may be caused by the home, so that that communication now occurs. 5 years from now, our events are doctors, insurance providers, contractors get together and say, let's compare notes.
Excellent.
Wouldn't it be great if a family goes to see their doctor, they have some concerns, they report what their concerns are, the doctor asks, or their doctor's nurse or provider, someone in the office, community health worker asks a set of basic questions. They gather that information, provide it to the doctor. The doctor writes a prescription for a healthy home assessment. Take this. Here's a list of the healthy home evaluators locally who can provide that service. They go and get their house assessed, giving them a prioritized list of ways they can address the needs. If needed, they're connected to community resources that can address some of those needs if they don't have the income to deal with it. And then they're getting the investment paid for, and then they can take the bill, hand it to the health insurance company it's paid for, because it's going to save that health insurance company tens of thousands of dollars in long-term health care. If we could make that connection, we would be a far better country for it, and far better economic health, as well as the health of our homes.
Let's just commit to making that connection.
Deal. Here, I'll shake your hand.
All right.
So out of those two
Fist
things you
bump.
mentioned, yeah, and those are things I usually preach on this show at the end. So you guys took my thunder there. But the other thing that I think will come out of that is evidence-based. We will have evidence finally, because we really aren't documenting what people are doing in the home and what actually changes with their symptomology. That we don't have this relationship of saying, okay, you know what, I improved your filtration and your ventilation, and we got you to remove your carpet and do some stuff. And guess what? Anecdotally, we find these out. We hear stories about people that just so thrilled with what the energy auditor may have done, energy assessment, but like we're not really actually documenting these as like, you know, these are actually, we have now 3,000 cases where people's asthma was reduced because we did these types of energy. And it isn't one thing. It's a collection of things. It's making the home much better overall. So I think that we're going to come out with, you know, that prescription is going to be based upon that we now know what actually are the top 5 things to be doing first, and then work your way down the other things that are on that. It's also occupant behavior. That's right.
Sure.
Yeah, there is research evidence to support that now. So it's just a matter of crossing that chasm and making it readily available.
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to see in the long run is just that people are more cognizant of, you know, how important the roles of your indoor environment, both at home and at work and at school, you know, where all the places that you occupy, how much that really affects the quality of your life. I mean, it's really important, and, you know, and from a business perspective, how that affects the quality of the productivity of your employees. You know, it's like this is, yeah, it's hard to quantify, but the reality is, we really don't live and work in really great environments categorically, you know, do we, in this
And it's
country?
as important to you as the food you eat.
Now we live, go to work, and go to school in our homes.
And it's
So,
as important as the food you eat to your life and health and well-being.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I will remind people that if you want to have more information, you go to bpi.org/HHP, and it takes you to their main page where you can also access the resources on the right side that I showed you. And you can also go to HHP/HHP_presentation and download the full PowerPoint that you saw some of the slides that Larry had. So if you're looking for more information, they have really stepped up their game in terms of how you can navigate through their website. So I encourage you to go there for more information.
And certainly, I guess we'll talk about Healthy Indoors, right? At this point, your slide ready?
Yep.
The latest issue of Healthy Indoors is on the street in digital form and free and available at healthyindoors.com. The current issue is on going back to school. and are you healthy or not? Here we go. Very contentious conversations going on about that, and that's our cover story for this latest issue in Healthy Indoors. So definitely go to healthyindoors.com. You can read that and all of our back issues from the past 7 years. We are 1 month shy of our starting our 8th year with Healthy Indoors magazine, which scares the hell out of me, thinking that I've been doing it this long. But that being said, it's a great, excellent, free resource that incredible resource that you need to get your hands on. You can get a free subscription by just clicking on the button there, and I highly recommend it. Now, the Healthy Indoor Show is available. Show you're watching right now, whether you're watching it live or recorded. The Healthy Indoors Show, all of our back episodes are available on the Health HI Show tab at healthyindoors.com. We stream it out to a multiple of other areas, and also we have a podcast. So if you can't stand to look at our charming faces, you can listen to our charming voices as you drive around in your automobiles. So highly recommend that you take advantage of, again, all these free resources we put out there for you. Joe, you've got stuff you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm sponsored by Hayward Score. I want to make sure I shout out to those guys. So it's a free online survey tool that helps people have a better understanding about their house by just taking a survey that reminds them about all these things are collectively together that could be impacting their health. Or we now are kind of switching our message to more about, is this home a shelter for your house, or embracing your health while you're at your home, especially now there's people who mentioned that you're in your home probably 95% of the time. So if you're looking for more information, also great resources on haywardscore.com. Get your free score. It's free. It takes about 10 minutes, and you'll learn a lot about your home in a simple interactive survey.
Yeah, well worth doing. And again, healthy housing principles, right? Recent, just a fresh off the presses from the Building Performance Institute. Again, I'd really like to thank our guest today, the Building Performance Institute's CEO, Larry Zarker, and the principal author and editor for that document, for that reference guide, the Healthy Housing Principles Reference Guide, Kevin Kennedy, coming live from Kansas City, Missouri. Joe Medosh, as always, coming in live from Colorado, and I guess Larry, you're in Maryland, actually, right? You're not in DC.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
I'm in Maryland.
You're
real
close
to DC.
You're a DC guy, though, kind of.
If I go down to DC, I have to quarantine for 2 weeks, so I'm just staying in Maryland.
Okay, well, with all that pleasurable thought. So again, we mentioned it, the Healthy Indoors latest edition, the edition on going back to school. Really worth your read. I think you're going to find some valuable info in there, stuff on mycotoxins, a bunch of other great stuff there. We do this show.
It's good.
Yeah, right. It was I don't feel bad about it. It was a every now and then, like, you're the parent, so you're proud of all your children, but some children shine.
This one did.
You know how that goes.
Well done.
So we're here every week for the live streaming here at healthyindoors.com, and again at a plethora of other places on Facebook pages and all over the place, YouTube, we're everywhere. But anyway, you can see us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, Healthy Indoors Show. And again, pick up Healthy Indoors magazine and check out all of our resources at healthyindoors.com. For the rest of our guests, it's free. I think we've said that, but yeah, there's a lot of free stuff. We're giving free stuff.
It's really no charge to you.
Yeah, you virtually don't pay anything for it. On that, I'm Bob Krell, your host and publisher of Healthy Indoors magazine. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Please stay safe.